GrannyHandicap. Welcome to Granny's house, where we're going to talk about disabilities. So, hello to Academy Impossible. Glad you're here again, and we will go ahead and get started. Well, I will get started. So let me see. What do we want to look at tonight? Let me bring up my thing, my browser, and off we go. So let me see what we want to do tonight. I'll go over here and use this browser. All right. So what do I want to talk about tonight? Let's look at psychological effects of disability and see what we, right, all right, some psychological effects of physical disability. We'll look at the other stuff in a little bit. So I'm going to add this to a file, bring this up. That was yesterday's. This is today. So I'll just, oh, that's another one. That's for another day. Life on Mars for disabled people. I should do that as a thing. But right now, it's the 25th of August. And we're talking about psychological effects of disability. And here's our source on the NIH. So go over here, put that there, copy that, and stick it in the chat. Oh, hello, Haas. Thank you. Let's see. Thanks for the follow. And I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna put this here. Boom. Okay, let's talk about psychological effects of physical disability. People who become severely disabled go through denial and mourning before adjusting to their disability. Negative aspects of these stages, such as dependence and hostility, are viewed as logical outcomes within a society that perpetuates an ideology of normality, where disability is perceived as evidence of negative status. So, this has a whole bunch of resources. So, I'll leave that there. That's from the American Journal of Occupational Therapy. Occupational therapy is where a therapist at your activities of daily living, whether you can feed yourself, dress yourself, bathe yourself, and all that. And they evaluate how disabled you are from those standpoints. And so that's the journal, the medical journal that this is in. That's not really very friendly for our audience, so let me look at mental health of people with disabilities. This ought to be pretty friendly for y'all. So let's have a look. I try to include all sorts of sources because you never know when somebody who is a professional might be joining us. And it's important to have some scholarly stuff as well as some lay stuff. So I always try to include both. So here we go. Let's talk about this one. Adults with disabilities report experiencing frequent mental distress almost 5 times as often as adults without disabilities. So December 3rd is International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I'm going to be celebrating that every year. So, disability limits how you function, and it can include difficulty walking or climbing stairs, which I have, hearing, seeing, concentrating, remembering, or making decisions. And I have some trouble with the last 3. Two people with the same type of disability can be affected in very different ways. Some disabilities may be hidden or not easy to see. During COVID-19, of course, isolation, disconnect, disrupted routines, and diminished health services have greatly impacted the lives and mental well-being of people with disabilities. So you should call your healthcare provider if stress gets in the way. It's okay not to feel okay. I like that. How you respond to stress can depend on your background, your support systems, your finances, your health and emotional background, the community you live in, and many other factors. So how are you feeling? My stock answer is fine, even if I'm dying. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah, sure. um, it helps to stay positive and remind yourself of your strengths. But there's a link how right now for inspiration and resources to find what helps. That's cool. Healthy ways to cope with stress. Know what to do if you're sick. Know where and how to get mental health treatment. There are mental health hotlines, and you don't have to be dying to call them. You can call them if you're just feeling really, really bad and you just need someone to talk to. Often that's all you need. So, keep a hotline handy. There are crisis lines, and then there are just talk lines, so you can decide for yourself whether you're in a crisis or whether you just need somebody to talk to. But there's hotlines all over the place. Please take advantage of them. Take care of your emotional health. Take breaks from watching, reading, or listening to news stories, and including those on social media. They've done studies and they found out that if you spend hours and hours on social media, you are very likely to suffer from depression, and there's a lot of comparisons. People send photos of being at the beach, and if you haven't had a vacation in a lot of years like me, it might make you feel a little bad that, well, gosh, she can go have a vacation and I haven't been able to take one in years. It gets to you. It's I try to be happy for people that get to go on vacation. I'll often say to somebody who's going to the beach, "Would you bring me back some sand?" So I've got various bottles of sand. That's my little beach property that I keep in the kitchen window because, it's so hard to be able to do something like that for us. But it's good not to be on social media too much. I get on long enough to post something that I hope will help somebody, but I don't spend a lot of time looking at what my friends are doing. My close friends, yes, I want to see what they're up to, but my not so close friends, you can drive yourself crazy with who's in the hospital and who you need to pray for and all this, and it can really bring you down. So you want to limit that. And, I'm sure the Lord understands if you're not watching every single friend you've got on Facebook and praying every time they have a crisis, because you've got to take care of your mental health first before you can take care of your family and your immediate loved ones. So and take care of your body. Take deep breaths, stretch. Right now, just stretch a little. It's good. It's really good. We disabled people often forget to get up every once in a while because maybe it's difficult. Like for me, it's real difficult to get out of bed. But it's important to get up every hour and move around, or at least stretch your legs out and do leg lifts. I'm doing a leg lift right now while I'm doing my live stream. And this is something that will prevent you from getting blood clots from sitting so much. So it's very important. Make time to unwind. Try to do some other activities you enjoy and add to those every once in a while. So you've got something new that's exciting to do. Connect with others. Talk with people you trust about your concerns and how you're feeling. And you can still maintain your social connections. It takes more effort, but it is good to connect with others and take care of their mental health as well as yours by having a little conversation. Communication is a good thing. It nourishes us mentally, and you got to feed your mental as well as your physical. So you need a little social contact. Connect with your community or faith-based organizations. While social distancing measures are in place, consider connecting online through social media or by phone and mail. So, social media is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a conduit to keep in touch with your close ones. And it's good to have maybe join a group that does something online once a week, just to have a little contact with a few people that you can see face to face on Zoom is really, it's so important. I found out about a church group of mine right where I go to church. And it's really nice to be able to do that on Tuesday nights. You may have noticed that I'm late for my live stream every Tuesday. That's why. Um, but it really recharges my batteries to be able to keep in touch with some folks that I can see on a regular basis. It really helps with the isolation I feel sometimes. And so, how do you improve the mental health of people with disabilities? There are two national centers on disability that focus on improving the quality of life for people living with disabilities. Special Olympics Inclusive Health programming focuses on improving the physical and social emotional well-being of people with intellectual disabilities by increasing inclusion in healthcare. Wonderful thing. And the National Center on Health, Physical Activity, and Disability seeks to help people with disabilities and other chronic health conditions achieve health benefits through increased participation in all types of physical and social activities. And their mentor program takes a holistic approach to restoring, improving, and protecting health. It divides health into three domains: physical, mental, and emotional. So, through this program, people who have acquired a new disability, a spinal cord injury, stroke, traumatic brain injury, or a new diagnosis like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease, or have a congenital condition like cerebral palsy, spina bifida, learn the many ways life can be enhanced through health and wellness activities. So there are lots of links here and the references. So cool. So there's lots of good links here for you. And let me make sure I've got that. Oh, okay. Let me go over here and make sure I've got this link in the chat. Got to keep the links going there. Hey, Ox Turtle, how you doing? Got to be careful how you put things. This is a family-friendly channel. Good to see you. Do you have any questions or comments about what we're talking about, or got a new topic for me? And I'll give you a minute. Good to see you on. I like it when I've got somebody to talk to, as well as talking about whatever topic. Mental health is important, so it's good for all of us who are disabled to take care of the mental health aspect. Especially here in the US, we tend to minimize that, and it's not good to minimize that. We have one of the highest suicide rates among teenagers in the world. We need to put more emphasis on mental health and well-being of people in school and in higher education, really in the workplace, everywhere. We need to be more aware of how to keep ourselves mentally healthy and going well. Well, I'll go on, and if you have anything to say, please feel welcome to do that. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to. If I don't know the answer, I can look it up. So let me go back and look for other things. Let's look up impact of disability. Oh, this looks good. Disability impacts all of us. So there's the 61 million adults in the United States live with a disability. So more of us down here in the Southeast. But so that's 1 in 4. And here's the different types. Oh, I wish I had had this graphic. This is wonderful. So 1 in 4 have some type of disability. 13.7% have a mobility disability like me. 10.8% have a cognition disability. 6.8% have independent living disabilities like me. 5.9% have a hearing disability. 4.6% a vision disability, and 3.7% have self-care disabilities. I have difficulty dressing and bathing, so I'm in that 3.7%. So I'm in several categories. Hello.
Hi, Mama.
So you got your cookies in, huh?
Yeah, cookies are. The dough is chilling in the.
It's chilling. Woo!
Microwave fridge. It's chilling
The
in the
fridge. It won't get cold in the microwave.
Yeah. So it's chilling in the fridge, and in 4 hours I'll be able to bake them.
Cool. She's making Cookie Monster cookies. Ooh.
I don't think I put enough food dye in. They look a bit dish, but whatever.
Oh, well, you probably should have put more blue than green.
No, I only put
Oh.
blue in. The green is because the egg yolks are yellow.
Yeah, so you have to compensate for that with a little more blue.
Yeah, so.
Oh, well.
It's something to fix.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay. So, disability is especially common in these groups. 2 in 5 for adults age 65 and older. 1 in 4 women. 2 in 5 non-Hispanic, American Indian, or Alaska Natives have a disability. So, adults living with disabilities are more likely to have obesity. Yeah. Smoke. I don't smoke. Have heart disease. Nope, not me. Or have diabetes. Thank goodness I don't. So, but I'm in the obesity group. That still makes me high risk. And healthcare access barriers for working age adults include 1 in 3 do not have a usual healthcare provider. My daughter's in that boat. 1 in 3 have an unmet healthcare need because of cost in the past year. That's my daughter again. 1 in 4 did not have a routine checkup in the past year. My daughter. Well, she's not 45 to 64 though. So, yeah, public health is for all of us. Improving access to health care, promoting healthy living, monitoring public health data, researching and reducing health disparities, and building inclusive health programs. So CDC and its partners are working together to improve the health of people living with disabilities. Cool. So this is a neat graphic, so I'm gonna grab that real quick. Definitely it's a good graphic to have. And I can refer to it again. So I'm going to put it in here. All right. So So are we, okay, I don't see any more comments, so I will go ahead and go back to disability and mental health. Okay, Accessible U from the University of Minnesota. And let's get the title of this article. Okay. All right, let's look about accessible materials. Okay. Alrighty. So, creating accessible websites and digital materials reduces barriers and ensures that all students who encounter your materials, and I might add, anybody who wants to download something from any website, can understand and interact with them. So, people often classify disabilities by individual physical traits or function, like visual, auditory, motor, cognitive, seizure, or mental health. That's the medical model. The moral model defines disability as a sign of moral or religious failing. Ugh. The charity model defines a disability as a tragedy, which is bad. The rehabilitation model believes that people with disabilities should work hard to appear as able as possible to avoid discomfort or inconvenience to individuals who do not experience the disability. The models of disability described here are inappropriate. They don't contribute to the kind of equitable and inclusive society. Of course, that's University of Minnesota, but this is really good for all schools. A different way of thinking about disability began to emerge in the 1970s when people with disabilities began publicly reflecting on their own realities. It's known as the social model of disability. So, with this way of thinking, disability is defined by the decisions that society makes about what makes bodies and minds valuable. Then it leads to decisions about physical spaces, technologies, laws, and policies. These spaces, laws, and policies often exclude and discriminate against peoples who, whose minds and bodies function differently. Okay. In the social model of disability, society can amplify exclusion and discrimination against people with disabilities. But society also can encourage people to design a world that works well for a wider range of bodies and minds. When understood in this light, every person is responsible for contributing to the accessibility of the environment that we all share. Cool. How many people have disabilities? It's difficult to estimate. Many people are hesitant to disclose disabilities or don't consider their impairments to be disabilities. According to a 2011 report, about 20% of the world's population experience some form of disability. That would be 1 in 5. Also notes that people with disabilities have, as compared to those without disabilities, poorer health outcomes, lower education achievements, less economic participation, and higher rates of poverty. These negative outcomes are often linked to barriers in accessing services. And the Census Bureau reports 19% of U.S. citizens disclosing the presence of a disability. Of course, that's been updated to 1 in 4 now. So, in Minnesota, ambulatory is the most common type. Cognitive, hearing, independent living, and self-care. We saw updated statistics from the CDC. Age and geographic differences are wide. Disability is strongly associated with aging, so disabilities across counties varied from 6.1% to 18.3%, and Minneapolis has the most people with disabilities of all cities, I'm supposing in Minnesota. Wide disparities in prevalence exist across race and cultural groups. So, okay. Okay, and numbers reported are artificially low because, a lot of us hide our disabilities. And it's hard to find services, so a lot of people don't know about them because they're often spread out in different agencies, and it can be difficult to find the help you need or even know that it exists. Disabilities can be apparent to you or not. They can be permanent, and there are also impairments that can be temporary or situational. Someone born deaf is living with a permanent disability. Someone with an ear infection is affected by a temporary impairment, which is treatable. A person who is struggling to hear while in a noisy workspace is experiencing a situational impairment or temporary disablement. All are affected by access barriers, but you also have an unequal experience depending on how society views and stigmatizes some bodies and minds according to the social model of disability. So if you consider the wide range of disabilities and impairments as you design, you can extend access to more people in new ways. So, a piece of technology is only as accessible as its least accessible component. Users with disabilities often get most of the way through a process only to find that the end product, in an inaccessible table, PDF, or online form, is unavailable to them because it lacks accessibility features. So if you're deaf and you explore majors on college websites, there's a lot of uncaptioned video content. Or if you're a student who relies on speech recognition software to navigate the web. You're trying to do your part of a group project and continue to find barriers to the information you need because the code for the websites you visit makes the information inaccessible to you. What do you tell your group members? So this is a lot of food for thought. We do need to consider making our society more accessible to everybody so we can all participate and contribute. So I like this. I'll add it to our list. I should have put it down here. Oop. There we go. Oh, I put it in here already. All right. My bad. I already had it here. I didn't put it in the chat. Let me put it in the chat. Oh, hi, Miss Sometimes. Wow. Okay, tell me about it. And this is what I was looking at. This is from a college website talking about, uh-oh, what happened? Did you have a misunderstanding with someone? I hope it turned out okay. Oh, I'm sorry that that happened. I'm gonna let's not let's not post it here, but yeah, that's bad. Um, can you think of a way that you could have gotten somebody to help you or not have hit him? Sorry about that. Hmm. And the teacher didn't think it was important enough to interfere? I can't understand why. I can't understand why it's the teacher's job to make sure that people aren't picking on people. Can you go to the principal and explain things to him? Because this is just unacceptable. Nobody should have to stand there and be made fun of. But it's kind of hard to make your point if you hit Good, good. So they took it well. Did they tell you what they're going to do about it? Good. Well, I guess they can't because of privacy concerns or whatever, but it's good that they're going to take action because that's just. I don't understand this. The teacher should have a talking to. They should confront him. It's like, why didn't you stop this? This is not acceptable. Nobody should be making fun of disabled people. But I'm glad that they were going to take steps to separate y'all. That's good. But they need to nip this in the bud. They need to make it, the administration of the school should make it clear that they're not going to tolerate bullying of any kind. Mm, yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's just, you shouldn't have to be putting up with that. That's just ridiculous. I have a lot of problems with things that happen in public schools because I think, with schools being county run, it depends on the particular staff you have in that particular county as to what they consider important enough to intervene, and there ought to be national standards for that. Mhm. Yeah, it's traumatic for you because they pushed you past your breaking point, and everybody has one. Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope you can get with a therapist soon because definitely. Well, I think that it would be hard for a lot of people to keep their temper under those circumstances because that's just so cruel. And good grief, y'all are in high school. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me that the staff would put up with that. Well, I'm very sorry that that happened to you, and all that trauma today. Ooh. Yeah. I don't know what motivates people to make fun of what they don't understand. I tend to think about, maybe his parents aren't, you know. It's hard to say, but um it's a hard thing. Oh, okay. That makes a little more sense. But goodness, oh wow. That's why I say that before kids are in 4th grade, they ought to have teachers work with them on socialization, which is the most important thing in school. If you don't have the ability to know that people say irritating things, that you don't hit, you sit down and talk about things, and you try to consider other people's feelings. If you have that kind of training early in school, then you don't have maybe, that kind of stuff going on later. But it's a difficult situation. And yeah, but at the same time, we can't know what's going on in his head, right? With any other person, you're kind of on the outside looking in and looking at how they're behaving, but you can't really know what's going on up here, you know, that they make the choices that they make. And, it's bad because you can't really sit down like, if I had a situation like that at work, I'd try to say to the person, "Hey, that hurts my feelings when you say things like that." And, maybe it would lead to a discussion or maybe it wouldn't. But there again, I'm just sad that happened because it makes it's hard. It's hard. And I don't know if I had been there, if I could have thought of anything to say that, I would have liked to think that I would have spoken up and said, you know, well, the thing is, there's got to be conversation. And if there's not civil conversation, you can't solve something like this. You end up one side loses it or whatever, and then the other side is maybe, trying to start something. And yeah, it it is a problem that is very hard to solve if you don't get some groups of students together to talk about things like this. Uh, it seems like with more teachers, this would, help stuff because, then you could have the older students in a different room. Uh, Oh dear. And it just builds up and gets worse. The teacher has to say something and take a stand. And a lot of grown-ups haven't learned to do that. I really think that, yeah, and plus, teachers need training in psychology. They really, um, when I worked in the education department down at Georgia State University, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a very big school, 25,000 students. And I was a temporary secretary. So for 2 months, I worked in there and I asked the teachers a lot of questions and I heard a lot of conversations. And having had some psychology classes, I was listening to some of this stuff and going, what? Why don't they use psychological principles? Why don't they have more classes in psychology? They might have one class in psychology in the curriculum because I looked it up in the catalog. It's like, why don't they teach more psychology to teachers who are going to be teaching young minds? They really need to train them in just good communication, healthy communication, no name calling, no bullying, you know, being open and honest with your feelings and saying, look, it's not nice to say things like that. I mean, you don't have to be confrontational to say, hey, I would like not to see this in my class. Instead, you've got teachers that punish the whole class when one student does something and they want other people to rat on them. And it's like, nobody's going to do that. Do you know child psychology at all? So, they need to train teachers better. And that kind of training should go for everybody who supervises somebody at work, because you don't want to allow that kind of cruelty around you. You can't have it. I was lucky. I supervised a lot of college students when I was working in libraries, and I never had anybody that was out and out cruel to somebody. Yeah, yeah. But it's really crossing a line when you've got somebody actively just spouting cruelty and not saying anything like, "Hey, that's over the line. That's not acceptable in my class. I don't want to hear that." We want to be kind to each other in here, and maybe the teacher just maybe she's new and just didn't know what to do. Hopefully she'll talk to some of the other teachers and figure out something, but I hope they give her useful information and not, oh, just punish the class. That doesn't solve anything. Wow. But there are ways to handle it, and that didn't sound like the. Well, you can talk to your special needs students and say, let's set some ground rules. Let's not say cruel things to each other. Let's not say things um that hurt people's feelings. Let's be kind to each other and enjoy this year together. You know, it seems like there's a lot of things she could have said that might have diffused it. Of course, I wasn't there, so I don't know what was going through her mind. But yeah, I mean, there have to be ground rules. You've got to be taught to try to get along and not provoke people. And that's why I think they need more psychology courses and they need more situations in practicum where they act out, okay, if a student does this, this is what I'm going to do. They can't cover everything, but they could give teachers more training to try to, do what a child psychologist would do, you know? And I'm not saying y'all are grammar school kids. I'm talking about that, you would probably say much the same to a grammar school class as you would to a class of special needs kids, because depending on what levels they're at, you know, um, you can put things in understandable ways for many different levels. And mm, it just makes me sad. That that the teacher would just let that go on. That's just crazy. You're asking for fights. I know it's a scary thing to lose control and hit somebody. It's awful. It feels awful. You feel horrible, but you were provoked, and we all have our limit of what we can take. And on a particular day it might take less than on another day, but oh, he threatened you. That's not acceptable. She should have said something. Oh my goodness. Oh me. So are you going to be in the class with that teacher or another teacher? Good. So they protected you. That's good. That's just wow. Yeah. I want to get on my soapbox and say, well, they ought to hire more teachers because they really need smaller classes. Overcrowding seems to be the norm because county school systems don't give enough money to, most teachers are spending $400 a year out of their pocket on their classrooms because the supplies are not supplied by the county. They just don't give it a high priority compared to other things. And it's crazy that it has to be that way. I don't like it. I homeschooled my younger one, and I was so glad that I did because she had all sorts of trouble. She had a boy sitting next to her who was constantly talking to her, and then she would get caught for talking when the teacher was teaching. And it's like, can't you see this happening? And, they put the same kid beside her, had assigned seats 2 years in a row. It's like, can't you learn from experience and put him in another class? You know? Yeah, it's totally unfair. And I would go and talk to her teacher. Her teacher was an intelligent person and she listened to all my concerns, but she just didn't quite see that, she could have done something. Oh, oh, totally disorganized. Good grief. What happened afterwards? I mean, with nobody in there, was that's just totally weird after y'all had an incident that they went outside? Wow. I don't think that was the way to handle it either. Goodness. If I had been there, I don't know what I would have done, but wow. The school really ought to get a psychologist in there to talk to all of y'all and, help you work through it because that's traumatic to everybody for something like that to happen. Wow. I do not understand public schools. Maybe if there's any teachers watching this, maybe you could write to me and say what you would have done if it was your classroom. Wow. Why wouldn't they let you call your mother? Oh, brother. I think that's crazy. Oh, if I was a parent of a child in that school, I would be up in arms. I would want my child to be able to call me if something happened at school. Ooh, that's not right, especially for special needs students. They should all have phones on them. What'd she say? Well, at least you could text her. Goes back to what I say about schools. Public schools, well, yeah, I mean, because he shouldn't have been saying all those things to all of y'all. I'm glad your mom is supportive. That's good. That's real good. But they really need to handle things like that better. I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but just as a parent, that just, oh, it hurts. And when my daughter, she didn't get her first cell phone until she was 13, so I had been doing homeschool for several years, but if she had had access to the phone, I would have wanted her to take it to school. So if she needed me, she could call me. I think that there ought to be a bill of rights for kids in school, all grades, because, I was horrified when my fifth grader had only 15 minutes for lunch. I think that's barbaric. Under OSHA, you have 30 minutes for lunch if you work if you're not a manager or something. If you're just a regular retail worker, you get two 15-minute breaks in an 8-hour day, and you get a 30-minute lunch. I would double that. I would say kids need an hour for lunch all the way through school, all grades, and they need breaks every 2 hours, 15-minute breaks. They do not need to be forced to have 5 minutes between classes to run to their locker and try to make it to class on time. It causes all sorts of stress on young people. I don't agree with the way school is done in this day and age. And I don't agree with all the homework either. Young people should have some time to themselves. They should not have to. Mhm. Yeah. But remember, you're human. Everybody's got a breaking point, and you don't usually have somebody who just attacks you like that. Well, the fact that they're not punishing you, that definitely means that you're not in trouble, but at the same time, you feel like you've crossed a line and you've got that guilt. But you need to give yourself some extra kindness tonight because you had a hard day. And, we learn through making mistakes. And you've definitely got a conscience. You feel awful about it. And, if I had lost my temper and hit somebody, I would feel really bad too. So the thing that maybe you need to do is think about, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? Because today didn't go as you wanted it to go. So decide tonight how you're going to do tomorrow. And if you see him, maybe you can just not look at him and just, pretend he's not there, even if he's saying something, so that you can just get past him since he won't be in your class. So you can hold on to that thought, and it might help. I remember so many times when I was in ninth grade that I came home crying every single day. Somebody was saying something that hurt my feelings, or um, somebody was making fun of my teeth or my glasses, or it was just anything that was different. They were making fun of me, and I just couldn't stand it. And I nearly had ulcers. It was awful. So there were times that I came very close to hitting. So, there was one time that this boy was trying to hit me with a branch. I mean, that thing was as big around as my forearm, okay? And he was trying to hit me with it. He dragged it in. We were in the hall by ourselves. It was after school hours. And I was scared to death. So I tried to kick him, and if I had connected, he would have been in bad shape. So I did lose it, and I felt horrible because I'm not a violent person. I was 11 or 12. I guess I was 12. I just felt terrible that I lost my temper, and I thought, "Oh my goodness, am I going to lose my temper again?" And I just clamped down further on my emotions, and it was very difficult to get through that. But when somebody pushes that hard, everybody has a breaking point, and you hope that won't happen. But you just need to give yourself some outlets to let the steam off. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to um, punch your pillow, or whatever works for you. Actually, they've found that punching pillows is not a good way to vent your anger. But if you like to draw or paint or do clay or